There's been a conversation, argument in philanthropy in recent years about what is the best way to alleviate poverty and help human communities across the globe become more economically stable. One idea that has gained some attention says that charities do best simply to give money directly and equally to the households in a community and let the recipients decide how best to use it. I have to say, I like this notion quite a bit. It avoids some of the problems of so-called toxic charity in which the givers decide what service or resource the recipients need, often without consulting them, and then provide that service or resource and pat themselves on the back for doing so. Instead, giving cash directly harnesses and empowers the creativity of those who know best what their economic obstacles are. It's not perfect, it's not without problems, but if you're going to give to fight global poverty, this method at least sidesteps a certain kind of patronizing attitude that says that I know the needs of people I've never met and circumstances I've never experienced better than they do. So I recently came across a kind of photo diary of just such a project. Give Directly, one of these organizations that funnels cash to people, gave the first of 4 quarterly $300 cash transfers to all 116 households in a village in Liberia. And they supplied one man with a camera to document the results. Most of the photos show people posing with what they've invested in. One young man gazes into the camera with a kind of tender seriousness, perched on the motorcycle taxi that he paid off with his money. A grandmother in a brown headscarf holds up a receipt for the year of schooling she was able to buy for her grandchildren. A mother stands beside a brilliant corrugated roofing sheet she's purchased to keep the rain from leaking into her house. Others stand over bags of cement to build a home, a new mattress, a charging station for villagers to use their cell phones. In each image, the subject wears a somber frown. Not all cultures are as photographically smiley as we are, except for one in which a group of men and boys lift their hands to the sky, some holding the cell phones on which the cash transfers appear, and grin like soccer fans whose team has just scored a goal. I've wondered what it's been like for these villagers to be chosen, seemingly out of the blue, for this sudden unlooked-for gift. To be living your life, getting by, maneuvering around the rain puddle in your home, forking over whatever percentage of your hard-earned taxi fares to slowly pay down your motorcycle or whatever it is, and suddenly to have this wealth drop out of a cloud, virtually, no strings attached. This extravagant abundance unloaded into your world, undeserved, unexpected. It's a kind of a very concrete, tangible metaphor for grace. Which is why I thought of it when I reread today's passage from John, preparing for today's sermon. Now, this is the first of 7 miracles that Jesus performs in this gospel, and as others have pointed out, it may seem like kind of an odd foot to start on. The problem here is not grinding poverty or grave illness, but social embarrassment. He's at a wedding where the hosts have run out of wine. What does he do? He changes some jars of water into wine, and voila, let the good times keep rolling. It might almost seem more of a party trick than a miracle. But Interestingly, John doesn't actually call it a miracle. He calls it a sign, semeion in Greek. Unlike a miracle, a sign is an indicator that points to something else, something beyond itself. And to appreciate this, we have to remember that in the Bible, a wedding banquet is a common image for the day of salvation, when God and God's people are restored to right relationship and abundant living. So Jesus' act here carries a spiritual meaning about restoration and wholeness and the extraordinary grace of God. And the nature of that grace comes through in the details of the story. The amount of water Jesus turns to wine is immense, some 120 to 180 gallons. The quality of wine, too, is unsurpassed, better even than the host's very best wine, which he served first, in accordance with the universal custom that you save the cheap stuff until people are too drunk to notice. What is the promise here? God's grace comes to us when we least expect it. It comes to us extravagantly, abundantly, and not in proportion to our need or deserving. And maybe particularly, it comes to us when we ourselves have run out of our own resources and have nowhere left to turn. What a reminder for a time such as ours, 2 years into a pandemic that is sapping the joy from so much of life. Some in our community are suffering multiple losses in their families. Others of us may just feel beaten down by the isolation or the callousness and ignorance with which others are treating an illness that has now taken 850,000 Americans. Or our species' wretched march into environmental catastrophe. Grace, friends, grace. It's available to us even in the midst of it all. In the simple beauty of each moment at hand, in the love that pours into our lives from God and so often through one another, in the gift of life so freely and abundantly given. Grace, like wine, when the celebration threatens to falter. Gallons and gallons of the good stuff, filling our stomachs, reviving our souls, till our cups run over. Amen.